All right, let's be on the record in case number 2018-CR126, captioned State of Kansas versus Shane Wallace. Would the parties announce their appearances, please?
It please the court, Candace Alcarez appears on behalf of the state.
Please court, defendant appears in person with counsel Fred Zimmerman.
All right, we are here set down for a sentencing today. Going quickly through the history of the case here, it looks like back on April 12th, the parties appeared by Zoom, and at that time, the defendant changed his plea from one of not guilty to guilty. The court inquired and accepted, set it for sentencing today and ordered a PSI. I've received that PSI. The critical findings are as follows. The sole count of conviction is one of possession of methamphetamine, a severity level 5 non-person drug felony. The defendant's criminal history score was found to be that of B. That would leave
Sorry, Judge. B or D?
B as in boy.
Thank you.
That would leave him with a presumptive prison sentence with a presumed range of 32, 34, or 36 months. If he has to do that time, he'll be eligible to up to 20% good time credit and subject to a post-release supervision duration of 12 months. Two special rules apply in this case, those being number 9 and number 10, that being committed while on probation, felony probation, and while on felony bond. If he's granted probation today, it would be for a period of 12 months to community corrections. Ms. Alcarez, I'll ask you first. Did you have an opportunity to review the PSI? Do you have any additions, corrections, or challenges to those findings?
Judge, I have reviewed it, and just for the record, did you say the criminal history score was E or B?
B as in boy.
Okay. Then yes, I have no corrections or additions to it, and I have reviewed it.
All right. Mr. Zimmerman, same question.
Your Honor, I've never had a chance to meet with Mr. Wallace, but I did email him a copy of the criminal history to ask him to look over it since it's kind of extensive, and told him that if there were any corrections or problems with it to let me know so I could file a challenge. He has done that, I assume, and has no challenge to the criminal history. I would correct the court in one thing. He said that we appeared by Zoom in April. Actually, this plea was done in court in April of 2018.
Okay, that's right.
We're down the road on this because before Mr. Wallace could be sentenced, he was sentenced in on the Missouri case and was a guest of the Missouri Department of Corrections for about 1.5 years.
Which was the same case that I'm in here on, because when all this happened on January I think it was the 12th, I took them on a high speed from Missouri into Kansas, and Kansas and Missouri charged me with the same thing. And I served the time in Missouri. I served 2 months in Department of Corrections in Kansas, and then I served the 2 years in Missouri on the charges, the same exact charges.
All right. Well, look, they're not the same exact charges because one happened in Missouri and one happened in Kansas. And so if you run for the police in Missouri, they'll charge you with that. You cross over into Kansas and start doing it, they can charge you there because those are two separate crimes. Okay. All right. Sure. So Mr. Zimmerman tells me, I put up on the screen the pre-sentence investigation. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. Mr. Zimmerman said he sent this to you and had you look over it. Particularly what I'm interested in is this, what's considered the criminal history worksheet. It starts right there and goes through there and finishes up there.
Sure.
Did you get a chance to look at all those? Do you have any challenges to any of those findings?
No, sir, I do not.
All right. I will find that there are no challenges to the pre-sentence investigation and adopt the findings thereof for today's hearing. Mr. Zimmerman, you filed a motion for a downward departure. Would you like to be heard on that this morning?
Yes, sir. Actually, I filed a motion for a dispositional departure because the plea agreement was that the parties would agree to recommend probation at the time of sentencing with no fine and no shock time. So I'm asking the court to make a dispositional departure to comply with the plea agreement that was entered into between the state and, at that time, Ms. Simons, I believe, was representing Mr. Wallace and Mr. Wallace. The durational departure, basically, Mr. Wallace has kind of preempted my argument in that they are, although they're different crimes because of jurisdiction, they arise out of the same fact circumstances. And he did do time in Missouri. So I guess what I'm asking the court to do is either make his sentence here concurrent with the Missouri sentence if possible, or to consider time served with regard to the Kansas sentence. And the basis for that is Mr. Wallace has indicated that he understands that one of the ways for him to better himself in the future to avoid future criminal activity is a change of scenery. And he has a fiance, and they are intending to move to the state of Arizona so he can start a new life down there. And so he'll obviously be asking to be compacted if he's granted probation. And also he'll do the same with the state parole office over in Missouri. He'll be reporting to the state parole office for, I believe, 3 more years. Is that correct, Mr. Wallace?
Yes, it is. I already have this Dana compact already in the works right now for Missouri to let me go to Arizona as we speak.
So, Judge, I guess that's the method behind, or the reason behind my adding in the durational departure. I know that wasn't part of the.
Fred, you muted yourself.
Basically my argument.
You muted yourself in the middle of that, Fred, right after you said, I know it wasn't part of the plea agreement, so.
Right, and I had a call beeping in on my phone. The reason I added that is because that wasn't contemplated at the time the parties entered the plea agreement in April of 2018 that Mr. Wallace would be doing that time in Missouri. So I added that in, even though it wasn't part of the plea agreement, because it wasn't contemplated at the time.
All right. Ms. Alcaraz, your position on defendant's motion.
Well, Judge, I was not the original prosecutor on this case when the plea agreement was made, but listening to what has been said, if he's already served time over in Missouri for a case that's pretty much, we're just crossing the state line, but it's all a part of a similar action, then I'm not really opposed to that, because he wouldn't have done time over here. He would have been, we've agreed to probation. And so him doing the time, I am fine with defendant's motion.
All right. Well, Fred, with a little more clarity as far as that durational departure, I have no problem running it concurrent with Missouri, and finding the reason to do so is that this was really one series of acts together. But if you're asking for a durational, is there a specific amount of time that's going to help equal it up with that Missouri sentence?
Yes, sir. I mean, I thought that it would have been easier to do it to time served rather than do it concurrent with Missouri. But if we can figure, I don't know how much time he actually did. Mr. Wallace, do you have the exact time you did it? You should have.
Yes, I did 2 months in Wyandotte, and then I did 24 months flat in Missouri. I never was released in between that time whatsoever. So I did 26 months straight.
All right.
Judge, I guess I would ask for a downward departure to 24 months just to be safe.
Ms. Alcaraz, any position on that request?
No, Judge, that's fine. I'll note it in the journal entry that if you do grant him that number, then I'll just make sure to note that it's concurrent with that other case and it's for time served.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Mr. Wallace, anything that now is your opportunity to tell me anything you want me to know in mitigation of your sentence today.
Your Honor, I did the crime. No problem admitting that. I did maybe not to some, but it's a little bit of substantial amount of time. I did a lot of that in a PC unit where I was locked down 20 hours a day. I did a lot of time where I had a lot of time to think, and I really would like to move to Arizona with my girlfriend and try to start my life over and leave all this, the crime and everything that I have done behind me.
All right. Mr. Zimmerman, any legal reason that you're aware of that why I should not now proceed to sentencing?
I don't know of any. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I'm going to grant the defendant's motion for a downward dispositional and a downward durational departure. I'm going to adopt the allegations in the defendant's motion as the substantial and compelling reasons. And frankly, one of those, the biggest reason for that is this was, although they are separate crimes because they were in separate jurisdictions, these events were in a series with those that happened in Missouri, in really kind of one continuous action. Mr. Wallace has served a sentence for that in Missouri, and that is a substantial and compelling reason in this court's opinion to depart not only dispositionally, but also durationally. Therefore, for the sole crime of conviction, that being possession of methamphetamine at severity level 5, non-person drug felony, he will be sentenced to the Department of Corrections for a period of 24 months. His application for probation is granted to community corrections for a period of 12 months. This case is ordered to run concurrently with the Missouri case that is reflected in his pre-sentence investigation, and it is also reflected that has been referred to earlier in this hearing. So I'm not sure how that's going to leave him with probation supervision here. Mr. Wallace, what are you going to be doing when you get out in Arizona as far as working and things like that?
I still got to serve 3 years probation or parole through Missouri because I have 3 more years still left. And
right.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go out and the first job I can snatch onto, I'm going to pick up, and that's all I'm going to do is just be working.
All right. Well, look, you can make the plans you want, but you understand that with this pandemic, that's probably one of the worst places in the country right now. And I don't know that a lot of places are open and hiring. So you might think hard. I don't want you to set yourself up to fail. In other words, to get out there, you can't find a job, can't find a place to live and things like that.
Already lives out there. That's what I'm doing is I'm home planning with her out there. We've been together for almost 3 years now. And so and I've known her for 26 years of my life. I mean, I've known her almost a lot of my life. And so I'm just going to go out there and we will work it out.
Okay. So I am going to, it sounds like you're perfectly capable of making a living. And so in considering some of the costs and fees, I'm going to assess court costs and supervision fees. Mr. Zimmerman, I'm going to waive your attorney fees for your client. It appears that he has a prior Kansas felony conviction, so there's no DNA database fee that is necessary. Ms. Alcaraz, do you have any idea if the drugs were tested in this case?
Judge, I do not see a testing, testing paperwork in the case file, so I'm assuming that they were not.
Okay, so there won't be any fee as far as that. I'm not issuing any fines and there's no request for restitution. So that should do it. Mr. Wallace, if I were to enter an order, say in this case that what you're looking at probably is a total of about, I'm going to round up, $350. If I ordered you to pay $100 a month, would you think that that's a workable plan?
If you would give me a month, set me out a month from now and then start it from then, I will be more than.
Okay. And the best thing is, as soon, here's the deal. You're really not going to have any backup time in this case, right? So you're going to be on probation, and they're going to be worried about you getting these costs and fees paid off. Once you do that, I think you and your attorney can make a pretty good argument to end your probation early. So then you just have to deal with the people over Missouri, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make your payment plan $100 a month to start September 1. Does that
Okay.
work?
That works.
Okay,
So I'm going to be
And
on
that way-
12 months probation then?
pardon?
I'm going to be on probation then?
It's a 12-month probation, but again, without backup time, with other supervision, once you get those costs and fees paid off, I think I would entertain a motion to end your probation as soon as those are paid off, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Judge, he's a resident of St. Joe right now, so he's not going to be able to walk across the street to the probation office.
He needs to call in. Carrie, what's the number that he needs to call over there for?
573-4180.
One more time.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That's community corrections.
The 911
913-573-4180. Mr. Zimmerman, do you happen to have a PSI, I'm sorry, you don't need a PSI request. You need to call them, Mr. Wallace, and tell them that you just got sentenced today
Okay.
and that the paperwork is on its way, okay? That
Okay.
way, they'll be able to contact you, make sure they have a good phone number and address, and they can get you set up, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Shane, as soon as you get that, as soon as you
I
get
have-
that paid, let me know
What's
as
that,
soon as
Fred?
you get that paid. I was telling him as soon as he gets that paid, let me know and we can take care of that.
Okay.
All right. So a couple of advisory things I have to give you, Mr. Wallace. As a convicted felon, it's prohibited for you to own or possess a firearm, certain kind of deadly cutting instruments like dirks, daggers, switchblades, basically knives that could be considered deadly weapons. Mr. Zimmerman, if you're interested, can tell you more about that. My point being, before you decide to own or possess any kind of weapon like that, make sure you talk to a good lawyer like Mr. Zimmerman to make sure that it wouldn't cause your probation or parole to be revoked or new charges, okay?
Sure.
You have 14 days from today to appeal anything you don't like about this sentence, all right?
All right.
Okay. Candace, anything that I failed to cover today?
Judge, just give me 1 second. I'm looking back over the journal entry. I know we announced a prison term. Do we also need to put the post release on there, even though we don't expect for him to have to serve anything?
Yeah, it's a post-release term of 12 months if he had to do that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then I think beyond that, we are good. Carrie, I just want to make sure I put down the right Missouri case. Is it the 2017 CN? Is that the Missouri case that he did the time on? Because I don't want to put the wrong one and then they not count it correctly.
It should be a 2018 case, shouldn't it?
I have a Buchanan County and a Platte County.
It's Platte County.
It's Platte? Okay,
Yes.
but I don't think that's the same case number you gave me. It's 18 AE-CR
Oh,
07.
wait, can you go back for me?
Start at the beginning, 18
Mhm.
AE-CR
Mhm.
0788.
Okay, awesome. All right, I
Good.
got it.
And now that's on the record too, so that's good.
Yep.
Fred, anything else we need to cover today?
No, Candace, just send that over to me, email, and I'll electronically sign it. Shane, as soon as I get a copy of that, I will mail it to you and explain your expungement rights and your appeal rights in that letter.
Okay. And I have a question. So if I'm trying to get this interstate compact, they already have the paperwork in with Missouri. Will Kansas follow along, right along with that?
I would assume so. You need to talk to the person who does the intake with you. As long as Missouri's running that to Arizona, it should be pretty seamless to get Kansas to do the same thing.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for our record today?
Nope,
Not
thank you,
from the
Judge.
state.
All right, we are adjourned. Good luck to you, Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm out.